Hello everyone, this is Jake from Fife Paranormal,
And this is Chris.
and we are back with episode 3 of our Five Files podcast series. Today we're actually going to be talking about the equipment we use and how we use them in the field. So Chris, before we get into today's show, is there anything you want to add?
No, I think we'll just go ahead and jump right into it.
Alright, the very first piece of equipment which you actually taught me to use is the typical digital voice recorder. And we use this, of course, for note-taking, recording EVP sessions, just kind of documenting everything that we do on a paranormal investigation, because it's not just used for EVPs to hear spirit voices. It's if someone has an experience, you go back hours or even days later, and you say, what was that experience I had? You can just go back through the files and look at it and see what it was. So we usually implement, what would you say, 2 or 3 recorders during an investigation, if not more.
Usually at least 2.
Yeah, because here recently, like with the Cabin on 360, we experimented with setting recorders up in isolated areas and just leaving them for long periods of time, which was no fun reviewing, especially if, you always have the trial and error of where do you place it, how do you place it, how do you get spirits to interact with the voice recorder when they're not, you're not asking questions.
Well, not only that, but you have to be really careful not to miss, you have to be careful what you hear.
Yeah.
Because it could be you making a sound in another room that travels over.
Right.
And that's where synchronizing your equipment, times, and all that is so very important with setting that up. That's the reason, we always, 1204 EVP session at blah, blah, blah. So that way, if you go back on one of those isolated recorders and you hear a voice, you can review to see if that was you talking in another room.
Right. Excuse me. But with voice recorders, the very first one we had was a pretty good one, and the new ones that we have, I like. It's just kind of interesting to have the different recorders, because when you have an EVP that picks up on one, but it doesn't pick up on the others, it's kind of weird, because if a spirit's speaking in that room, shouldn't both recorders pick up that voice? Or when a spirit communicates through EVP, do they just walk up to it, I'm going to speak into this recorder, and they direct their energy into that one device? Or how do you think that works?
Well, maybe the devices are slightly different, because all of our recorders, none of them are the same.
Right.
They're all different. I can remember when the digital recorder first come out, paranormal investigators didn't want to use them because they were digital. There was no magnetic tape, and part of the big theory is that you needed that magnetic tape to really pick up on spirit voices. And so I remember that was a huge debate in the paranormal community when digital recorders first started being used.
I think it'd be interesting I wonder if you could replicate the magnetic tape, I guess the effects of it, with a digital voice recorder, and how you would do that.
I don't know how you would do it, but to answer your initial question of why does one recorder pick it up and the other one don't, it could be proximity, it could be difference in recording styles, it could be a lot of environmental factors, or who knows. That's part of the still there's the question, but that's some thoughts on it in my mind. It has to be maybe directed energy, like you kind of alluded to. Maybe it has to mentally or quote unquote physically project itself. So that's why it has to focus on one or the other, but that's not always the case.
Yeah.
Because remember, we had the spirit box running that time, and it was weird though, because the spirit box picked up the voice that said "Obey the demon." Your recorder,
which was literally like a foot away from it.
Right. It picked it up, but it didn't come across clear. I'm a hallway in a room away with the phone doing a live cast on the Facebook page,
and it picks it up
crystal clear.
So
yeah.
Yeah, it's, I don't know. I guess we'll have to get down to more of the microphone specs to it.
Well, I was going to say it could be microphone specs, or it could also be sound wave distortion. It could be, there could be a lot of different factors.
Spirit distortion. Maybe
knows?
For some reason it didn't want it to be picked up clearly over the voice recorder.
Or maybe it couldn't because of the frequency, that tunage of the speaker itself, of the the recorder, the microphone built into the digital recorder.
Yeah.
Whereas the iPhone that I was using on down the hall and stuff picked it up clearer because of the modulation. I don't, that's
it
just
could be. Yeah, there's just a lot of the weird questions. Like sometimes when you hear something either in the room, like you hear a voice or you hear a knock or really any noise that's unexplained, and it doesn't pick up on the voice recorder. That is one of the biggest, I guess, frustrations of the paranormal. And it's weird because it's a sound in the room, and voice recorders are supposed to pick up any sound.
Is it in the room? What if it's just in your head? I'm not saying it's not. No, wait, stop. I'm not saying that it's not real or that it's not a paranormal event, but I'm just saying, what if it is, you're hearing it, but you're only hearing it in your head?
Well, then everyone in the room would have to be affected. Well, maybe, what if spirits can, I don't know, what if they can make you hear something in your head, like a group of people, they have that energy capability?
Right. And it's never a physical, it's all mental.
Which is also another interesting thing for why some people, when they're looking down the same hallway, someone will see a shadow figure or something and no one else will.
Or they might see something slightly different.
Yeah, I mean, how many times have we been on an investigation or a public event and someone will say, I just saw somebody walk across the hall, and everyone else is like, I didn't see anything.
Yeah, that happens too. Maybe they're just the way their brain is wired, they pick up on a different frequency. I don't know. It's just an interesting theory.
Yeah.
And that's something I've been digging into here lately is not only spirit activity, but how much of the human psyche are we able to project, produce, or pick up on as individuals.
Yeah.
And not only that, I do believe that there are departed spirits of humans that, once lived on this planet, i.e. ghosts.
Yeah.
But I also believe that there might be other realms, other...
like different layers to it.
Right. And I'm wondering if those dimensions don't have their own flora and fauna, for lack of another term.
Maybe we're the ghosts of someone else's dimension.
Well, think about if you go through with the dimension bleed-through theory, then that would make total sense.
Kind of, I don't know. It kind of puts the paranormal in a different light of perspective from it's just ghosts, it's just people who were once on this earth and now they're dead.
Well, but I mean, I think it's wrong to take. Like I said, I do believe in ghosts.
Right.
I do 110%. But at the same time, I think it's more complicated. I think there's more things at play there than just regular spirits.
And I agree. And I think the other, I guess, complicated aspects of it, I think it helps and could potentially better explain human spirits.
I think so.
Like how they're able to operate, the confinements that they're able to operate. Because I do think the other side, because it's not just spirits, I guess when I think of the other side, I think of everything else, whether it's elemental, all that stuff. I think there are rules to it. Just like I think the interaction between our world and another reality dimension, whatever you call it, I think there's rules between that. And possibly spirit communication is, I don't know, maybe a breaking of the rule. Or in certain cases, it's allowed. Certain areas, it's allowed.
Or under certain circumstances. Because when you talk about rules and laws, I believe it might be more of natural rules and laws. Not like a tribunal of angels and demons get together and go, all right, this is how we're going to do it. No.
I don't know. I like to think of Bigfoot, aliens, angels, and demons. They all got in one big stuffy room during the middle of spirit summer. And they said, okay, here's what we're going to operate under. Break. And then they all just split up.
That is very possible. But, I take a very naturalistic, view of it. And I think there's things out there that we haven't even, touched the tip of the iceberg yet in understanding. And that's kind of what makes it neat, And that's where I think equipment does play a role in understanding. Because anytime you can record, quantify information or an experience, then that helps the understanding thereof. But... me and equipment. I love equipment, but at the same time, I think it has a tendency to dull the senses if you allow it.
Yeah, because you're focusing your energy, your attention, your thoughts on the device. I mean, even if you're not saying it out loud, you're subconsciously thinking, okay, is this working properly? Did it just
set up right?
Yeah.
Should I change the batteries?
Yeah. Did it just pick up that noise I heard down the hallway?
Right.
What time is it on the thing so that I can go back? It's just there's a lot of things that run through your head, and like you said, it kind of takes away, I guess, your full attention. Which for us in our approach to the paranormal, I wouldn't call it a bare minimalist approach, but we don't take that much equipment into a session simply for that reason. We like to, and the way you always taught me was pay attention more to what the environment is telling you than what your equipment is telling you, but have the equipment there to verify.
Right.
Yeah.
To validate and verify. Exactly. And that's why I love the voice recorders. I love the digital recorders because you don't have to keep buying the little tapes. And then, I want one of those big base stations that does like the atmospheric. I think that would be interesting as all get out to be able to set that up.
What's the device? I'm trying to think of the name. We were at a public event at St. Albans Sanatorium once, and this lady had this. It was like, I think they call it like an EDI meter, but it's like the orange box with the black housing on the inside, and it displays the temperature, the EMF levels. If there's any vibration, this blue light will show to say, hey, there's vibration.
Oh, yeah, I know what you're talking about now.
I can't remember the name of it, but that was a really cool
That was a neat
device.
all-in-one tool. Yeah. But yeah, I would like to have something that, like I said, measures the barometric pressure and can record any temperature drops.
So basically a science lab in a device. That'd be kind of cool.
And it'd have to be lightweight because I don't like carrying a lot of heavy stuff around.
Carrying 100-pound piece of equipment everywhere you go.
Well,
we just saw something down the hallway. Quick, let's get the 100-pound device and take it down the hall.
Where's my Sherpas so that help me pack all this?
But voice recorders, it's not just a tool to catalog and communicate with the dead. It's good note taking. Sure. I know on a lot of your early investigations, you would have your own tape recorder, voice recorder, where you would take the notes. That'd be separate from your investigation.
Right.
And that's kind of the same thing. Actually, the original note recorder that you got me when I was 10, I used it specifically as a note recorder.
Right.
So, and it's very valuable. I know sometimes now we'd like to switch it up with video just to kind of have that visual representation of, okay, this is here.
Well, and that helps too when you're reviewing evidence to a location you're no longer at.
Yeah. Because if you're on a voice recorder, like say the night before you investigate the Lizzie Borden bed and breakfast.
Well, I'll give an example that actually happened to us. We were at St. Albans and we heard a thump sound on the recorders, and it was like thump, thump. You remember this?
Yeah.
And then we went back and reviewed the video, and it was me running into, actually hitting, what was it? Was it a door or the top step or something like that?
I think it was the door.
It was a door frame,
Side
and
door,
all that. I had bumped into the door frame.
Voice recorders, very good devices. Something else that we recently started using, actually it's the 1-year anniversary of us getting it, is the full spectrum digital camera.
Yeah, now that's more your deal than mine.
Yeah, But up until last year, we had never dealt with anything full spectrum, not really infrared either.
Right.
I know there's a lot of theories floating around that says spirits are scared of it, and that is...
I think scared is too strong of a
term. I think maybe they just don't like it for whatever reason. But we decided to invest in a digital camera, full spectrum, which the pink photos were kind of weird at first, and it helped being able to illuminate rooms that to the naked human eye it's pitch black, but you look on the viewfinder and it's lit up, you can see everything, which has really helped us not run into things. But to be completely honest, we really have not gotten anything paranormal on it.
As of yet, no.
As of yet. So I wonder why? How?
Well, I mean, it could be anywhere from... Now, we don't use it a lot. Let's be fair to the technology.
Yeah.
We do not use it a lot. Mm-hmm. So, our law of average goes down exponentially, just the simple fact that we
typically only take between 50 and 75 photos with it on an investigation.
Right,
now, this is an 8-hour investigation.
Right, I was going to say, which is a drop in the bucket.
Yeah.
So, let's be fair. We don't use it that much. Mm-hmm. And we haven't really delved into understanding,
how full spectrum infrared technology
works. So anybody out there that uses one, that loves them and all that, we're not saying that, they're junk.
It's a terrible device.
No, not saying that at all. It just it didn't integrate well with the way we do things.
Right.
I mean, there's only 2 of us and you can only,
You only have so many hands.
Right.
And we haven't mastered levitation yet.
Not yet. Might work on that one next. But
maybe.
I mean, where we are such... hands-on, and we move. We don't really sit in one location very often in most investigations. it's kind of hard to pack a lot of gear.
Yeah, I mean, I like to call it the Dragoon setup because you're fast moving.
Yeah.
Something happens down the hall, all you have to do is really pack up. Well, not really pack up. You just pick up the spirit box, voice recorder.
And we're gone.
Yeah, we typically hold the K2 meter unless
Right.
we know we're going to be in a fixed location for a long time, which typically doesn't last
I was
very
going to
long.
say, for us, being in one place at one time is about 15 minutes.
Yep.
Maybe half an hour on
But
the
you know,
outside.
all fairness, it's not because we have the shiny object syndrome, we get bored within 15 minutes. It's typically because stuff does happen, or going back to the whole, we pay attention to what the environment's telling us. We don't feel anything throughout this 15 minutes, so it's like, well, let's try somewhere else and see if it changes.
Right.
Which, speaking of full spectrum, we have our trail camera, which we've gotten maybe one or two things of interest on it, but I still like it. I
Now,
like
see,
having the piece of equipment that we can set up in a fixed
And
location.
leave.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's not infrared, it's full. Is it full? No, it's infrared. I apologize. It's infrared. It only moves, it only takes photos and video when something moves in front of it,
Right.
so it's not like it constantly runs. I like that.
Like I said, I like the trail cam. That's another one, like you said, we haven't got a lot of results from, but it's good to have that other set of eyes.
Right. Just in case, you never know.
Yeah, like I said, and they're reliable. They're
Maybe we need to play around a little bit with where we position it, how we position it.
I don't think there's no such thing as a bad spot unless you like put it up against a brick wall. But
I was about to say, or if it's facing the wall.
Right.
Now we did have, remember at the Nickerson Sneed, when we were doing the seance, and we had the trail camera on the second floor, and we heard what sounded like something running down the hall towards the camera, where the camera's positioned, and was it me that went up to check or you went up to check? But one of us went up to go check it, and it had actually been tilted on its side.
yeah,
Because I had it pressed up against a wall, and there's no way in the world it was going to move, and it was like tipped over facing this couch with a blurry shot. And there were actually two images that were taken during that time, and both of them, of course, were very blurry.
Right.
But it showed
but the
that...
simple fact that it took a picture.
Yeah, and the fact that it did verify the camera was moved from its original position.
And everybody in the house was in one room.
Everyone was accounted for. Even
So,
on
although
Facebook
that's
live
not-
stream, we
right.
had everyone accounted for.
So, although that's not great photographic evidence, it's still photographic evidence.
Right, and it's a validation that, hey, we heard something running down the
And
hallway.
then you've got this piece of correlating material where it's
Right.
at the same time,
which
is neat.
So even though it's not a ghost standing in the middle of the hallway waving its hand saying, hello, I'm a ghost, I exist, it's still great evidence.
It's still good evidence.
Which, in my opinion, great evidence doesn't have to be a voice saying, I'm a spirit, or like we said, a ghost person standing in front of a camera. I think a great piece of evidence is not just that, but one that validates an experience you or someone else has, or anything like that.
Well, it becomes relative.
Right. So I guess it's not more of great standalone evidence, but it's relative evidence.
And that a neat tie-in, because that's where equipment does play a crucial role.
Right.
It does play a crucial role, because there's nothing better, and I've said this before, there's nothing better than having, even if it's a fuzzy image and a K2 hit and a temperature drop and a voice on an EVP, wow,
It's like the Super Bowl of
Right,
stuff.
although, none of it's Class A material,
Right.
it's all, corroborating evidence.
Yeah, standing on its own, it's not really going to make sense,
Right.
but you put it all
But the
together.
simple fact you got all of it at the same time, that's pretty cool.
It's like a puzzle. I don't know, it's like a puzzle evidence puzzle. I don't know, that term
I
came
was
to
going
my
to
mind.
say, yeah, you'll have to work on that.
But, yeah, the full spectrum camera, I wish there was a way that we could set it up somewhere. I don't know, maybe put a clamp on the top of it and control it to some way like you hit a button and it'll take a photo. I'm sure there's cameras that do that. I know there's certain trail cameras you can do that with, but I mean something like a digital full spectrum camera.
Yeah, well, where they do they actually make a tripod that actually has a little button that will go down and a little aperture that will hit the button. Well, it's like when they do those time-lapse photography.
Yeah.
There's an old version of that and all that where it will actually hit the trigger. Yeah.
Maybe we need to get like a drinking bird.
Well, there you go. That'll work too.
Another thing that's kind of interesting, I just realized because of the trail camera, we have had some really interesting experiences because of the trail camera. Like, remember when we set it up on the second floor hallway of the King Center at St. Albans, and we went to go retrieve the trail camera. Originally, when we went to go retrieve it, the only reason we were going into the building was to retrieve that camera. And every door in the building was opening, saying that experience. And then when we did go up there, finally, we had some weird stuff happen. Now, not weird stuff, more of audio or visual on camera, but we felt some weird things. That was an interesting experience. That was because of that. At the Exchange Hotel, we had the camera set up outside the wardroom. When we went to go get it, we were hearing some footsteps, and we stayed up there. So because of that piece of equipment, we've had some interesting experiences.
So do you think it was... Well, okay. I'll go down that with you. All right. So just owning the camera provided you with those experiences.
All I'm saying is if we didn't own that camera, we
wouldn't have been... Okay.
Right. If we didn't own the camera, we wouldn't have been in the building.
So you're saying it's been of more karmic worth than actual physical worth?
Well, I wouldn't say that because the thing hasn't been totally useless.
It's been a good tool.
I mean, aside from paranormal, we now know there's a herd of deer that hangs out on our property.
Yeah.
I mean, so, it's I wouldn't consider it a waste.
No, it's not a waste. I like the trail cameras. And like I said, and plus too, it gives you that, like I said, that just having that extra set of eyes.
Right.
I mean, because, sometimes it's good to know if somebody, or like you say, animals are creeping around.
Yeah. Another piece of equipment that we use is actually from your old kit. Is the, what?
That thing, when it goes off.
The motion detector.
When it goes off, for some reason, that makes the hairs on the back of my neck stand up.
And also, it might give you slight deafness also. If you have it set on the alarm setting.
It's pretty loud on the alarm setting. I like even the ding dong, the bell sound still.
Now see, the ding dong doesn't really bother me. It's more of the, oh my God, you're all gonna die alarm, beep, 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 beep. That's what it sounds like.
That is pretty bad.
I mean, I don't know. It's almost like the jump scare that you kind of don't want to happen, but you really want to happen because it's like, oh, there's validation that something just moved in front. When I'm able to hear again, this will be great to tell everyone. And a setup going back to the trail camera is we usually had the trail camera set up and the motion detector slightly in front of it so that if something moves, we're able to catch it on film.
Right. And like I said, the motion detector is pretty cool. And I like too because that one, you can vary the field.
Right.
You can have it at a very wide angle, projecting out, or you can have it very close up. Because a lot of times we keep it, narrowed close in.
Yeah.
And I'll never forget when we were in the abandoned barn and hadn't no sooner set it down and turned it on. And it makes a sound to let you know that it's working.
Right.
And then, it made that sound, and I think we get out maybe one or two sentences, and then it goes off.
Yeah.
And there's nothing in front of us but the camera and a drop-off, and it's like, okay. But like I said, for some reason, when that thing goes off, it's just like,
It's like, oh, crap. Like, you have that confirmation that something's in the room with you. Another piece of equipment that we have gotten a lot of success with is the K2 meter.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
I like the K2 meter. The interesting, intelligent, like we tried to do the yes or no questions. That's interesting to me. I wish there was a way you could tell how close the, entity is from the device. Which I know there's the green, the yellow, the orange, and red. But if there was a way, like, I don't know, like a screen that says anomaly detected 4 feet.
Right. That would be pretty interesting.
That would be pretty cool.
Yeah, because you don't know how strong, the strength play a part in how well the meter goes off.
Yeah.
Something could be really weak and be a foot away from you and it barely goes into the green. Yeah. Or it could be like high powerful and be half a mile away and the thing's lit up.
Yeah.
You don't know. So yeah, that would be pretty interesting to be able to correlate. I wonder if you'd have to set up like some type of triangle detection type grid, or triangulate the position. I don't know. I don't know how you would do that.
There's a way you could do that.
There
we
has
just
to be
haven't
a way.
figured it out.
Yeah.
Real quick, I do want to give a shout out to the shortest lived piece of equipment we've ever used is the laser grid.
Not against the laser grid.
I'm not against it.
I've seen some great results.
I have too. Some kind of creepy looking results.
And I don't think it was the last, but the next to last investigation we went on, and she was talking about the laser grid. And, there's a lot of people that's had great success with it. It's one of those other pieces that it's a good piece. It's a good tool. I love the concept.
Because you're able to see the form you're dealing with.
Right, but it's never fell into our, it's never made it into our permanent repertoire.
To be fair, we don't have the clip to where you clip it on and it leaves it on constantly. So the way we had it was you had to hold it with your thumb the entire time.
Well, we also rigged it up a couple of different ways. It just, even when we had it, on and we didn't have to hold it.
Yeah, it just didn't work for us.
No.
Which, that's the thing about paranormal equipment. You may be listening to this show, you're like, these people are crazy. The full spectrum camera, the laser grid, is the greatest piece of equipment I've ever used.
And exactly. And for somebody else, it might be the greatest,
Yeah.
It's just the way we operate and the way that, we
our
do
approach to investigation.
Right. Right. I mean, we've talked to people that, that's the only thing they use is a full spectrum camera. And they get great results with it.
Yeah.
So, by no means are we trashing any piece of equipment.
Yeah, it's just, I don't know, our investigation preference, our investigation style, those two just don't really work for us. But that doesn't mean we're just going to give up on them. I still want to do some experiments with full spectrum.
Mm-hmm.
Want to try it out. I've heard recently, you're going to laugh, and it's okay to laugh. People have had good success with spirit selfies.
I'm not going to laugh because anything's possible.
Right. Like, remember the, where was it? At the Exchange Hotel, that one room where you take a selfie, the painting changes faces.
Yeah. Yeah, why not? I mean,
I just remember reviewing the evidence from the Exchange Hotel. You said, Jake, here's my phone, sync the photos up from the investigation. And so I'm looking through the photos, all I see is a bunch of selfies of you in that room. And it's not like happy smiling selfies, it's more of, okay, let's see if this works. I'm just going to look into the camera, press the
I think
shutter
that's
button.
the only selfies I've ever taken.
Really?
Yeah.
Was in that room.
That one, the sarcastic one I sent that guy with my thumbs up. But other than that, I think that's the only selfies I've ever taken in my entire life.
So we should put that in a museum or something.
It will be.
One day. Spirit stuff. Boy, what if you had
Well, you had that whole craze with the spirit photography, and it's basically the same thing. It's just not, they're not doing selfies, of course, because of a photographer taking the picture. But, I mean, it's a time-tested and, and true thing.
It dates back to basically the birth of photography.
Right.
It's just instead of there being another photographer.
And was there a lot of hoaxed ones? Real quick before anybody makes the comment, yes, we know a lot of them were hoaxed, and all that. But still,
out of every 1,000 hoaxed ones, there's always that one that is of interest.
I love when they throw that statistic out. We can explain 95.5%. All right, what about the other 4.5%? Tell me about those. So, yes, we know a lot of those were hoaxed, and that's cool. But any type of photography. We've played with to kind of take your stick away from me. We've got a couple of different cameras we use besides the full spectrum.
Although I will say the best potentially spirit photos we've gotten were just with our iPhones.
Right. Yeah. Well, we've gotten to where even the cameras, because we got a couple of really nice cameras, and we use them for the publication shots and publicity shots.
Yeah.
But we don't use them that much on investigations anymore.
No, it's because typically we're live streaming on Facebook. We take short video clips with our phones.
Right.
Yeah, we don't really do a whole lot of filming.
No, we do it more with the camera.
Yeah.
Maybe that's what we do. We do a how to be an iPhone paranormal investigator. I would like to, this kind of ties in with the conversation, apps for your phone, different apps.
Yeah.
I would like to download a few of the different apps and really, really, really examine them and see, what kind of validity they have to them and how well they work in the field.
My problem with it is that some of them, I don't know, can they feed into the whole Wi-Fi connection? Can they, using the microphone, can they pick up what you're talking about and somehow intelligently, AI-ly come up with words that would make sense?
Well, sure. Yeah, sure.
And that's kind of my issue also with the Ovilus. I don't think that's how the Ovilus exactly works, but, we've tried the Ovilus.
Right.
We've tried the Ovilus X, and I cannot remember the other kind of Ovilus.
Now, the one of that got me was where it was talking about, what was it? It said blood under something, and it was actually when you lifted up that one display, there was a blood stain. And so is there something to it? You know, I don't know that it fits, you know, into our brand.
I mean, for us,
lack of a
I'm
better
pretty
term.
happy with the Spirit Box for our setup.
I am too. Right now, I'm happy with the Spirit Box. Although I love we won't go into detail with it. You gave me that look. I'm not going into detail, but we are experimenting with a slightly different version. It's not a version of the Spirit Box.
It's an earlier take on spirit communication that supposedly works better.
And we'll leave it there right now.
Yep.
Still, we love the Spirit Box. Spirit Box is a good tool, another good tool.
And it's cool because it's real-time communication.
It's real-time. You have to be so much more careful with the Spirit Box.
Right, because you don't want to give in to the whole, I want to hear a voice, I want it to answer my question, I want it to be this spirit.
Because you're going to hear something.
You are. It's just, I don't know. And I figure since we're talking about spirit, let's go ahead and get into that. We use the PSP-7 Spirit Box. It's the regular one, not detuned. It has 100 milliseconds, 150, 200, 250, 300, and 350. But we only use the 100 milliseconds.
Right.
Because the others, now, you might try the higher speeds and it works better for you. It's just past 100, I don't really like using any of the others. Because for me, it's too slow. Because, like, when we first got the Spirit Box, we tried 350, and we could hear, like, 3 or 4 words from a single radio DJ.
Right.
Which, in my personal opinion, that kind of defeats the whole purpose of the Spirit Box, is you don't want to hear the radio DJs. And so we just use the 100 milliseconds because when radio DJ does come through, or Spirit Voice, or music comes through, it's more of just, it's like garbled junk. Is pretty much the only way I can describe it.
But even at that speed, sometimes you can pick up, you know, whole words or, you know.
I think you can pick up maybe like one word. I can't think of with 100 milliseconds we've been
you
able
have
to
be
pick
careful,
up more
especially like on down in the lower bands where you got NPR, those things where they broadcast on 1 to 2 channels.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of hang-ups to the Spirit Box,
and that's one of the reasons that we're not giving up on the Spirit Box. We're looking for other ways to kind of achieve the same thing, only potentially better. We still like the real-time communication.
Right.
It's just, I don't know, like we talked about a few weeks ago, there's so many factors that goes into a Spirit Box response.
Right.
You can't say for 100% certainty, okay, it's not radio, because there's always that chance
there's
it could
always
be.
that off chance. Right.
So we're trying to figure out a way, how can we eliminate that off chance? And that's what we're trying to do.
And get away from white noise.
Right. Because white noise, we've had the Spirit Box for, going on 4 years now.
Yeah.
And that white noise, after about 5 minutes, it doesn't affect the ears, really. It's just, it's kind of there. It's not pleasant. And it potentially drowns out other noises in the building,
and that's
in the room.
Yeah. So, yeah, we've got something in the works, something we've been working on.
We'll
leave it at that.
We'll announce it here soon.
When we know what we're doing, and when we know what we're dealing with, and you know, we try it out, we'll let everybody know.
Yeah.
But you know, until then, I hate to say it because we don't know yet.
Right.
Right. So we'll just leave it at a foreshadowing mystery.
You know, there's so many different types of Spirit Boxes, and when you look at all of them, they essentially do the same thing. But people say that certain ones work better than others. But they all they literally do is just scan radio waves. So what makes certain Spirit Boxes? And then there's the people that have like the gigantic old radios, like the crystal radios, where they hack into it and they can have those as Spirit Box, and they get really, really good responses from that. So what makes?
Well, like I said, when I was doing it years ago, there was no, you know. The Spirit Box didn't exist, of course.
Right.
So we would just take a radio and just tune it to a dead station and just have, you know, just use that. And we would get responses. TVs, we'd get responses. You know, anything that produced white noise. And that's why, you know, I would almost rather take a Spirit Box and just leave it on one channel that you can't hear a broadcast on.
Yeah.
And just do it that way.
Well, using the whole white noise thing, and I definitely agree. And we even did try an experiment where we left it at one station. Didn't get anything, but it was still cool to try. The little white noise generators that I know sometimes you can hook them up to a voice recorder and you can't hear the white noise, but it's pumping, I guess, white noise energy into the air. And then there's certain ones where you can hear it in real time. In theory, that should be like 1,000 times better than a spirit box, because you don't have the possible radio bleed through. You just have the white noise energy. So why do you think that white noise generators aren't as widely used as spirit boxes, when honestly, essentially they do the same thing but better?
You want me to give you the honest answer on that?
Can I handle the truth?
I don't know.
I can handle it.
Here's what I think is the honest answer to that. The spirit box gets more results because there's more false positives. That's what I think.
You go drop the mic after that one.
And walk, yeah. No, seriously. I mean, it's so easy to misinterpret something on the spirit box.
Right.
Whereas if you get a voice off of a white noise generator, because that thing doesn't receive radio signals.
Yeah, so it's like, okay, who's communicating?
So I have said it, and I will stand by it. I think there is a whole lot of false positives, because we've made false positives.
Right.
So I'm not saying that people just don't know what they're doing. We're not experts, but we pretty well know what we're doing. But we've made false positives.
Yeah.
Like when we're in the heat of an investigation, it's like, did you hear that? And we think it says something, and then we go back and review, and it's like, okay, that's not what it said.
It's okay, that's kind of embarrassing.
It's like, all right, no, that was a JCPenney ad.
Ooh.
I mean, it happens.
Yeah.
And like I said, I'm not throwing off on the spirit box. I like the spirit box.
Yeah,
but I think that there's so many false positives that I think that's why it's more popular.
And there's a lot of other, I guess, pieces of equipment that, I don't know, it has less positive. Like, see, for me, when it came to the spirit box fame and all that stuff, the first thing that hit me, of course, this is thinking before we owned a spirit box, it's because it's real time. You don't have to wait hours or days.
That's the neatest thing about it. And I was a huge skeptic.
Yeah.
Because you remember, you wanted one, and I was like, why do you want that? And I didn't want nothing to do with it.
Mm-hmm.
And then we went to
a tour.
We went to
where
a tour.
They used one.
And then they had one. And after that experience, I wanted one myself. It's like, okay, there's something to this. So do not get me wrong. We have had intelligent conversations with the
full
spirit
sentences
box.
come across.
So definitely believe that it works.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of our go-to pieces of equipment to use.
But like I said, even we've made mistakes with it, and it's it's so much easier to make a mistake with the spirit box.
Yeah, and with paranormal equipment, we want to try to eliminate as many possibilities for contamination, false positives, to try and, I guess, conclusively record spirit voices, spirit communication. So whenever you have a device, it's like, okay, it accomplishes that in real time, but there's so many things that would raise questions about it. The credibility would be easily called into question.
Oh, sure.
So how can we... And what piece of equipment should we use that eliminates that?
Well, you go through every story, though. I mean, literally a spirit can use anything for communication. How many stories have you heard of phantom phone calls?
Yeah.
Or phone calls from the dead, I remember I lived in a house, and there was an old phone in there, and it would ring. It wasn't hooked up, but it would ring, and you could pick it up, and you could hear voices on the other end. You couldn't always make up what they say, make out what they said. Most times you couldn't. It was just like a crackling sound. You could hear voices. This phone had no line to it, and car radios.
It was more of like a set piece.
Right, but car radios. People have had, communications over car radio. I mean, everything under the sun, at one point in time or another, spirits used for communication.
Completely off topic and random. I read a few nights ago on the internet that Christine exists. The killer car.
Well, you ask if inanimate objects can develop personalities. Yes.
As soon as you brought up car, I was like, oh, Christine's real. Would you investigate? Okay, first off, would you drive that car that supposedly everyone who has owned it has died, and it has, on record, killed a few people?
Okay, you know me. Answer that question for me.
Yes.
Yes, I would drive it. Yes, I would take it down.
Would you drive it while trying to communicate with the spirit that haunts the car?
Sure.
I always picture like Hal's voice from 2001: Space Odyssey coming through the radio.
It's not a romantic enough notion, but yeah.
It's supposed to be creepy. I mean, because I don't know what it is about the paranormal. It's almost like they understand the horror cliches and they go along with it.
Right.
Which is pretty cool. It's like, okay, they still have a sense of humor.
Well, I was going to say, they're playing right along with it,
Which is why you don't watch It or a bunch of other horror movies before you go on an investigation.
I just recently watched the new It, so we're not going to talk about that.
Oh, we're not going to do a movie review.
We're not going to do
on
a
the
movie
podcast.
review.
Aw, maybe next week, folks.
Well, maybe tune in next week. Maybe we'll. It won't take me long to sum up my thoughts on it. But anyway, so what other equipment do you? Let's see. Besides flashlights.
Flashlights, pretty self-explanatory. You press a button, they illuminate rooms. People also use them for intelligent communication. We've never done that.
We've never even tried that.
No, we haven't. Did we? No. Remember last time we were at St. Albans, we took part in a session where they used it in the nurse's viewing station or something like that. I can't remember the room, but they used it, and we were present.
Right.
But personally, we've never used it.
No, we've never used it. Not that we don't, think anything can be used as communication.
Right.
What's the one, and I know I'm slightly off topic here, what's the one where you take a pencil and you put another
Charlie.
Charlie. I actually want to try that.
I do too. And another one that I also want to try is cat scratch. Have you ever heard of cat scratch?
No, I'm not.
Okay, what you do is you go into it has to be at nighttime. And it originally started as like a kid's Halloween game for younger kids, but supposedly crap started happening. So you go into a room at night, you have to lock the door. You choose one window in the room. You don't open it, you crack it to where there's just maybe like a quarter of an inch of space, and you say cat scratch 3 times. And supposedly you close the window, turn on the lights, and you'll have scratches all over your arms like a cat scratched you.
Really?
Yeah. It's kind of like the Bloody Mary thing, only, it marks you.
Really?
Yeah.
How did this one escape my radar? We got to try that.
I originally was at school, and we were joking around, and someone mentioned it, and I had never heard of it, but it's like if you don't want to do Bloody Mary because you're too scared, you do this, but it still has that ooh creepy vibe to it.
Right.
But apparently, crap seriously does happen when you do it. Like I think the theory behind it is a spirit. It's like summons a spirit of a cat that comes through the window, claws you to shreds, and then goes back out the window.
But that's all it does.
Yes.
Nothing like the Bloody Mary thing where it comes back later and gets you.
No.
Okay.
It's not like the Mirror Master or Ghost.
Okay.
I had to tie in comics there.
Yeah, I noticed that.
Charlie, there was always something kind of weird about it. The first weird thing that questions, the evil dark artsness of it, how do you get the pencils to stay like that? For some reason, whenever I try to do it, it's like I end up knocking the table, or a slight gust of wind will knock the pencil off.
I don't know, balance?
For some reason, my pencils don't have that balance.
But like I said, I've thought about trying that one.
So, to these quote-unquote Halloween party games, do you think there is something to it? But then again, the Ouija board, it was technically... Well, that didn't really start as a party game. That actually was a real tool for spirit communication.
Right, then they made it a game.
Sure. Because, Hasbro's.
Was that Hasbro or...
It was Hasbro that owns it now. And they're the ones that,
Was it Parker Brothers that did the... I can't remember now.
I thought it was Parker. I know Hasbro has it now, but I think the mid-'60s it was Parker Brothers. Because originally, I think the dude's name was Fold. No, he wasn't the original. He was the first guy who started really
Now we're talking about the pressed cardboard game version, not...
Right.
Because spirit communication is time out of mind.
Yeah, technically the Ouija board dates back to the 1100s with automatic writing. It was some Asian culture... It was some dynasty where they would set out like this board where they would etch their stuff on, and they would have the spirits write stuff. And that it was actually banned, I think, in the 1300s is what I read.
Huh.
Because apparently it was... The spirits were giving people messages like overthrow the dynasty and different things like that. And so it kind of just
that's not going to set well in feudal China.
And then it kind of fell out of favor. And then actually about the Civil War is when it picked up
the
again.
Spiritualist movement.
Right.
Yeah.
Actually it started like 18... It was during the Civil War because a lot of the soldiers or the soldiers' wives would want to communicate with their loved ones, so they would hire these medium spiritualists, and they would have... It's more automatic writing instead of you have your hand on a planchette, but they would receive supposedly messages from the other side.
You're talking about the planchettes where they put the pen down in the middle of it?
Yeah.
Yep.
And then the Ouija board as we know it really didn't come to be until the first mentioning is 1886, when there were these mediums / skeptics at this camp that used a board with alphabet on it, and they had this wooden planchette type thing that they'd put their hands on, and it would spell things out. But that was 4 years before it was patented and was official. So, cool fact of the day.
Pretty interesting.
We might have to do a show on the Ouija board sometime.
I was going to say, maybe we might buckle down and do that next.
Yeah, the history of the Ouija board and automatic writing. Because automatic writing, it's cool because it also ties into the start of computers and a whole bunch of other stuff. I think Harry Price even experimented with it a little bit.
I think so.
There's a lot of cool stuff that automatic writing that you can talk about. But back to equipment, something that's really cool that I've seen people on YouTube do it. We haven't done it yet. All the kids are doing it. You hook your spirit box up to your vehicle's aux plug-in, and you can use it as like a gigantic spirit box speaker.
Really?
Yeah. There was, what was it? I can't remember the guy's name, and I'm sorry, guy, but he did it at a battlefield, and he used it in his truck. And the clarity on that was like, holy freaking crap.
We'll use your mom's van. We're not doing my truck.
Really?
You going to turn my truck into a spirit antenna? Well, sure, let's do it. We'll take the train.
The spirit truck.
It's already got a nickname, and it ain't spirit truck.
Okay.
But no, I hadn't. Yes, I did see that. I know the one you're talking about. He drove through the. Yes.
Yeah.
And it was very clear. Very well. It's like we went on the investigation that time, and the lady had the Bose speaker. Oh my God!
That's probably the coolest speaker I've ever seen.
That was
used.
an awesome speaker.
Yeah.
That was a truly awesome speaker.
It's like it detuned the static itself.
It did. Bose is wonderful. I got a set of Bose headphones. I love Bose. That's another thing. With equipment too, we got to realize my first K2 meter was a decent meter.
Right.
The one you have now, you're doing all that. We paid a little bit more for it. It's a little bit better meter. So sometimes you do get what you pay for.
Spirits don't like cheap knockoff K2 meters.
I mean, it's the quality of what you're using.
Well, maybe all joking aside, and this is gonna sound like a joke, but I'm actually being serious. Maybe like the ghosts of rich people.
Maybe talking about they snub. Yeah, I'm sure that's what it is.
They snub something like a Dollar General voice recorder. They're not using high class recorders. I won't talk to them.
Yeah, I'm sure that would play a part in it.
I mean, maybe that's how they were in life. So as you are in life, possible. You are in death.
And I do believe that.
Now, I'm not saying you need to go to a location and ask if you're a rich snob. That won't get you responses.
That might not get you, or it might get you a different kind of response than what you want.
Right. Potentially harmful. We're not responsible for harmful, potentially hurtful responses from the spirit world. Just putting that out there.
Do we need to start putting disclaimers on things?
I don't think you can really predict what we're going to come up with or say.
No.
I mean, last week, I don't think we would have come up with buildings being alive and Monster House, the movie, coming to life. But hey, we did.
You never know what's going to happen next. Oh, that was somebody. We paused because we heard something, and it was normal noise.
Normal noise. We're not crazy about that.
What about that issue?
Something else that is a piece of equipment that is in our arsenal. I think we've used it literally once. Is the dowsing rods.
I like the dowsing rods, but I think once again, you have to be careful with any type of
movement.
We'll call them, sense-oriented items. Mm-hmm. Like I've got that pendulum. We've only taken it once. Same reason the dowsing rods. Mm-hmm. I've seen them work, and and I definitely believe in the dowsing rods.
Now,
I've seen them work
one of the creepier experiences that we've had was with a pair of dowsing rods.
And I've seen them detect anything from spirits to water to, I had that item hid in the yard because Jacob didn't actually trust the dowsing rods.
Nope.
And I said, all right. I said, I'm not even going to tell you what you're looking for, but you're looking for something and it's wrapped up and it's buried under the ground. And you went to go toward it and then you veered away from it. And I said, why did you change direction? You're like, because I didn't think it would be over there. And the way you were headed was exactly where it was. So, yep. But once again, it's a piece of equipment that I think it's neat because you're using your own mind, your own senses, to detect what's around you.
Right.
But it's so easy because it is a sense-oriented device. It's so easy to, what would you say, skew the results?
I mean,
I guess that's the way I want to put it.
Even if you're not doing it intentionally,
right,
you can still.
I mean, because we make, what was it we seen on that documentary? You make 1,000 micro movements a minute or something like that.
So any little micro movement.
But then again, maybe your body uses the micro movements to direct you to where you need to be. I don't know. It's just one of those subjective things.
Or maybe
it's like we were at that haunted location. We're not going to say the name of the location. And a person had a set of dowsing rods, and why it was happening, we're like, wow, But when we reviewed the tape, you could see just that. Remember that small muscle movement, that he was doing with his thumb to move them. I don't think the dude knew he was moving them.
I don't either.
Not like they were moving. But, it's and once again, that, because we had that debate then, is that spirit activity
channeling through?
Right.
Kind of like with the Ouija board planchette. They supposedly channel through and can move. Is it kind of the same thing with the dowsing rod? And how can you prove that?
How can you prove either way? So then
you can't.
Right. So that invalidates it. Although
right. The skeptics don't know. And the
right.
skeptics aren't as
well, and it's not about the skeptics. It's about what you can empirically prove. I can know that you're 110% honest with a piece of evidence you bring me.
Right.
But I couldn't take that piece of evidence to somebody else because
they don't know me. They don't.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So.
Do you remember, not to interrupt, but do you remember when we did use the Ouija board one time, we had the K2 meter set up next to it?
Mm-hmm.
I like that setup. I think in terms of verifying, I guess, the credibility of, I guess, the spirit spellings, because we don't have spirit speaking spells yet.
No.
Not yet. I think a K2 meter or something that detects changes in the atmosphere, I think that's the closest you can get, really. Unless you're, aside from like a polygraph hooked up to every person, is anyone moving this, and seeing if they all pass.
Right. Well, I mean, you're exactly right. How do you validate that experience? I'll tell you one Ouija board story, and then I'll save the rest of them for if we do a Ouija board show. Mm-hmm. We were at a party, of course, and somebody brought out a Ouija board, and this guy was a total skeptic, and all that, and he's like, "This is a bunch of junk," So and they're like, well, try it out. And he said, I will if so-and-so does it with me. And this was a person standing off to the side, not even paying attention. And the girl was like, I don't want to do it. So they said, neither one of them believed in it.
Right.
So they sat down and they asked, and so the girl hosting the party looked at the guy and said, ask a question that only you would know the answer. Mm-hmm. He said, all right. He said, how many nieces and nephews do I have? And the thing went to 5. He goes, ha. He goes, I only have 3.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody's like, and so for the next hour or so, he just talks junk about the Ouija board.
Yeah.
He gets a phone call an hour later, and he had just been the proud nephew of twins. I mean, he had a nephew and a niece born an hour before. And he was that he didn't know about. Of course, they knew they was pregnant, but she wasn't due for another 2 months.
Yeah.
She went into early labor. And he was like, Mom, when did this happen? And she said, about an hour ago. So, how in the world,
did the board know?
Right, because even if you were going to take that leap, say you knew the guy, none of us knew that,
right,
that she was pregnant, and let alone pregnant with twins. How can you make that leap? But it happened.
Holy crap.
So is it a viable tool? Yes. How do you quantitate it? How do you measure it? How do you present the findings from it?
Mm-hmm. I mean, for me, I guess the best way I can think to verify it is a device that detects any and all changes in the atmosphere of the room, whether it's EMF, temperature, anything. I think that would, for me, in my opinion, I think that would be the best way to validate that.
And that would be neat, because if you could validate the increase in EMF activity around it while it's being used, that would be pretty cool, to be able to say that. But other than that, I mean, and plus too, is this a spirit telling the people operating the board what's going on, or is it their higher conscious tapping into a source of information?
Who knows?
Who knows?
We have a few minutes left in the show, so out of all the equipment we have, also we have a bunch of crystals.
Yes.
And things like that. How do you think those affect the results we get on an investigation?
I think it varies. I think crystals, once again, are tools. And all depends what you're using the tool for and what kind of tool you have as to what results you have. I think, crystals are one of those things that I know a bit about, but I don't know as much as I want to know.
Yeah.
I do know that even science is looking at crystals. I thought I saw something neat a while back, and they were actually even looking at making computer hard drives with crystals. I mean, they could store so much more information on, how they affect the spectrum of light, and all that. So to simplify, I mean, we take them for, we usually use them for protection purposes.
Yep.
And I think that they're a good tool for that. But now I've seen crystals used to channel energy. I had a friend that, her mom used it in health benefits, things like that. So, crystals are a pretty neat tool.
There's power to them.
There's something to them, most definitely. That's something, like I said, that I wished I knew more about.
What the kind that we have is orgonite, correct?
We have orgonite. We have regular crystals too.
Yeah, I know typically.
Now the orgonite we made.
That's the one I typically carry with me on an investigation. What's one piece of equipment you would like to have to add to our arsenal?
Probably an atmospheric station.
Yeah.
That would be the one thing I wanted.
Me, I've looked into it recently. It's kind of like Spirit Box. There's so many things that it could be other than spirit voices, but I'd like to experiment with a Tesla radio.
That'd be pretty interesting.
I think that could be pretty cool to use. And if you hear a cat in the background, our cat just walked into the room. But Chris, before we end the show, is there anything you would like to add?
No, just appreciate everybody for listening. Check us out on Facebook and YouTube.
And Twitter. Don't forget Twitter.
Yeah.
This week we're going to have a few announcements, a few videos outlining some of the things we've been working on, so definitely stay tuned for that. If you enjoy this show, feel free to like and subscribe. We will be back next Friday. We probably will do a show on Ouija board.
Let's go ahead and just plan it.
Yeah.
Let's go ahead and just plan one. We might do a tie-in. We might do a Fife Paranormal experiment.
Ooh, I like that.
Let's see if we can tie them all in together.
Yeah.
So, that might be something we try. So.
And we'll have to do an experiment with the truck stereo.
Yes.
With the Spirit Box. Because I'm curious to see how it would sound.
Oh,
it would sound awesome.
It would sound awesome. It would sound pretty awesome. So we might give that a shot too.
Yeah, but everyone, I want to thank you once again for tuning in to this episode of the Fife Files podcast. I'm Jake from Fife Paranormal.
And this is Chris.
Thank you all for listening. If you have a suggestion for a show, please leave a comment in the comment section below. And have a great day, everyone.